Mount Pleasant is one of the most popular cities in all of South Carolina, if not the most popular, and for good reason. It's more of an upscale place to live and has a ton to offer for people who live here or even for folks who are visiting. But even a city as amazing as Mount Pleasant comes with some downsides. Hey, what's up y'all? It's Shawn, your Charleston realtor, and in this video I want to give you the unfiltered truth about Mount Pleasant, the pros, the cons, and everything in between. Whether you're thinking about moving here or you're just curious about visiting, then this video is for you. So let's dive right in. So what about Mount Pleasant makes it stand out compared to other areas in the Charleston metro? Well, for starters, it's a very aesthetically pleasing city. It has a more upscale and clean look to it compared to other cities around the peninsula. Pretty much everywhere you go, you'll find amazing houses with beautiful southern architecture and tall palm trees reminding you that you live right next to the beach. Even the business districts in Mount Pleasant have that clean look to them. The reason for this is that the city is very intentional when it comes to planning. You won't see cheap traffic lights or unsightly power lines. With intense zoning and planning regulations, the city ensures that any new construction fits the town's aesthetic and doesn't detract from the community's overall look. Developers are required to meet high design and landscape standards to keep the city looking cohesive and aesthetically pleasing. The city also heavily invests in maintaining landscaping and green spaces, ensuring that there's enough greenery throughout the city. They're so purposeful about seasonal planting, so you'll often see flowers and other colorful plants in bloom. This work hasn't gone unnoticed and has brought even more demand to the area, which brings us to our first con, which is the rapid growth and infrastructure issues. Between the 2020 census and now, Mount Pleasant's population has increased by about 5.8%, with a total population in the neighborhood of around 97,000. Now, growth isn't a bad thing. It just means that people are discovering how incredible it is here. But with more people moving here daily comes growing pains. Infrastructure takes time and planning to build, so it hasn't been able to keep up with the population boom, which means traffic can get pretty bad if you catch certain roads at the wrong time of the day. Highway 17 is the main artery to Mount Pleasant from the peninsula, and it can get pretty backed up. I-526 to the north brings in commuters from North Charleston and beyond, so it can get pretty backed up as well. But with the growth the entire metro has seen, traffic is going to be an issue no matter where you go. It's just a matter of infrastructure and development catching up to help alleviate some of these issues. I've had clients who live in Mount Pleasant tell me they've learned to work around it by avoiding peak travel times or taking side roads and back roads to destinations. And obviously, if you have a remote job, then you won't have to deal with the frustrations that come with having to commute to work. Think about it. You could live in one of the most beautiful places in all of South Carolina without the struggle of being stuck in traffic. I can't imagine a better scenario. But with all of this demand, what does that mean for real estate? A great pro of Mount Pleasant is that because it's a more upscale area, you'll likely have higher rates of appreciation if you buy or invest here. The reasoning for this is that most of Mount Pleasant has already been fully developed. There isn't a lot of land for new development due to the geographical constraints of the area, so the existing supply is going to be the supply for the next few decades. Combine this with the city's ban on new multifamily residential housing, it's easy to see how home prices are going to continue to climb here. When you have an area that has a high demand with limited supply because there's no room for new development and there won't be any large apartment complexes being built in the area, prices are going to go up. This is great news for people with the means to buy investment properties or primary residence in Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is already a popular tourist destination, so the area sells itself. Another side benefit of real estate here is that the millage rate is relatively low compared to the city of Charleston and North Charleston. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of what the millage rate is and the history of a mill because it's too much of information for this video, but I just know that it helps maintain affordability for residents despite higher property values. I'll leave a link in the description where I discuss taxes more in depth. Now, speaking of high property values, does this mean also a higher cost of living? Unfortunately, the answer to that question is yes. Real estate prices in Mount Pleasant are 2 to 3 times higher than the median price you'll see throughout Charleston. The high cost of living is the biggest barrier to entry when it comes to living here. But it's not just real estate. Mount Pleasant is closer to the coast, so you're going to have higher insurance costs. Some areas will require flood insurance, but what's nice about Mount Pleasant is that a lot of the area doesn't require flood insurance unless you live in a floodplain. Looking at this map, you can see that most of the area isn't colored, which means that it's not in the flood zone. The orange is flood zone X, which FEMA says will flood once every 500 years or so flood insurance isn't required here either. However, you are more at risk of wind and hail damage, so that's why we see higher insurance costs the closer you go to the coast. Other things like groceries or going out to eat is going to be more expensive in Mount Pleasant because the cost to do business here is higher, just due to higher rents. The silver lining here is that there is still a lot of affordable options. Mount Pleasant still has McDonald's and Walmart, so you can find what you're looking for without breaking the bank. Now, let's talk about some real estate numbers in the area. I like to divide Mount Pleasant into North Mount Pleasant and South Mount Pleasant. And as a general rule of thumb, the more affordable homes are in the northern market. This is because the little bit of a development that is still happening here is mostly happening in the north, where there's available land to build new housing inventory. As of August 2024, in northern Mount Pleasant, the average sales price for a single-family detached home was just over $1 million, and the median sales price was $882,000. For townhomes or condos, the average sales price was $587,000, and a median sales price of $525,000. Now, in the southern market, the more expensive one, the average sales price for a single-family detached home was nearly $1.4 million, and the median sales price was nearly $1.2 million. For townhomes or condos, the average sales price was $771,000, and the median sales price was $569,000. But you don't need to spend $1 million to own a home here, although you easily could. There's something for everyone. You just need to give and take a little. Mount Pleasant has some amazing upscale townhomes and condos that make purchasing here much easier depending on where you buy. If you really want a single family home, then I would recommend looking in areas like Park West. Here you can find a home in the 600s or 700s, which is pretty close to the median sales price you'd see in the city of Charleston, but with all the benefits that come with living in Mount Pleasant. If you're interested in learning more about what it takes to buy a home in Mount Pleasant, I actually just made a video about it recently. I'll leave a link in the video description below. Now, the final pro I wanted to talk about regarding Mount Pleasant is that it has everything you need. And I mean everything. If you love the outdoors, then you're in luck because the city is packed with some of the most beautiful parks in the entire metro. And if you love boating or paddleboarding or kayaking, then there are so many cool ocean inlets to explore. It really feels like the area is twice as big when you're on the water here. And if you love fishing, there are both saltwater and freshwater spots. If you love to golf, then you probably already know that South Carolina has some of the most beautiful courses in the entire country. And some of those courses are in Mount Pleasant. If you love golfing right next to the ocean, then there's the course on the Isle of Palms called Wild Dunes, and that's only a 25-minute drive away. Pickleball has been exploding in popularity in recent years, and there's tons of courts in Mount Pleasant. If you love going to the beach, then you're in luck. Two of the most popular beaches in the entire state are the Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island, and they're only a 10 to 15-minute drive away, depending on your location. Think about it. You could get off work and still have enough time to play 9 holes, or hit up a pickleball court, or go to the beach and still get some sun for a few hours. What can be better than that? If you love shopping, there are countless options here. Some of the major shopping centers are Mount Pleasant Town Center and the Shops at Seaside Farms. Both of these shopping centers are packed with stores and are in beautiful locations that have that upscale shopping feel with fountains and awesome landscape features all around. But these are only 2 spots, and Mount Pleasant has everything from local specialty stores to national retailers and farmers markets. You'll be able to find everything you're looking for. If you love a more upscale dining experience, then you'll find plenty of incredible restaurants scattered throughout the city. There are so many that it would take you years to try them all, so you'll always have somewhere new to go. One of the most popular spots in Mount Pleasant is Shim Creek, so if you're visiting the area, you need to stop here. If you have kids, then you'll be happy to know that Mount Pleasant is home to some of the highest quality schools in the entire metro. I'm not going to go over the school rankings in this video, but if you want to do the research for yourself, I use greatschools.org. They update their rankings every year, so make sure you check it out before enrolling your kids. It's really hard to be bored in an area like Mount Pleasant. There's just so much to do, and it just comes down to what you like. So there you have it, my unfiltered look into the pros and the cons of Mount Pleasant. While the biggest con of the area is the high cost of living, it's easy to see why. The city truly stands out above the rest and will continue to do so because of the high standards that the city planners have set for the city. If that upscale and clean aesthetic appeals to you while also living in one of the most beautiful areas in all of Charleston, then you cannot overlook Mount Pleasant. If you learned anything from this video, please leave a like or a comment. It helps me out a ton. As always, I want to earn your business and be your resource for Charleston real estate. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.